Welcome to another edition of the Insider Mailbag. I'm Jared Johnson, and it's Kansas State week. The Red Raiders at 5-2 overall, 2-2 in the Big 12 host the Kansas State Wildcats, who are 3-3, 0-3 in the Big 12. Actually, they've lost 3 in a row coming in this game, 8 Big 12 games in a row dating back to last season. So both these teams need this victory this weekend for different reasons, but they definitely need them. But the game is set to kick off at 11 a.m. Central Time at the Jones, and it will be televised on Fox Sports 1. So with that, I'm going to dive right into these questions from Inside the Red Raiders subscribers. First one comes from Zocht, who, it's a lengthy question, but basically the gist, I hope you don't mind me doing this, Zocht, but the gist is, does the fact that Donovan Smith's getting all this quality playing time, does it mean anything possibly about Barron Morton's future? Could this be a negative thought or review on Barron? And I just want to say absolutely not. He's a true freshman coming from a small school, and honestly, if nothing, he's impressed me. He's been more impressive. His skills, his abilities, his leadership, and from just what I've seen. Okay, look, you talk to the coaches and they rave about him, But I try and be on scene and give you all my viewpoint from what I've seen with my own two eyes. Well, I saw him play in high school. He was obviously very talented. He did not disappoint. He's a coach's son. Actually talked to his mom, son, great family, all that. And that matters. And I'll tell you why here in a minute. But in terms of his skills, he has a very quick release. I love his release. He's great on the run. And he's speaking of running. In the open scrimmage, they went live and he ran for a 10-yard touchdown and something, 12-yard touchdown. And his athleticism was on full display, diving for the pylon and a touchdown. And he broke some tackles and stuff. And he just has a big arm, a great future. And something to point out about that, both in the spring scrimmage and then also in the open scrimmage in fall camp, he and I think Mason Tharp were the last players off the field. Actually, EZ and Tyler Shuck stayed after and threw some too, so they were there. But Barron was meeting with fans, signing autographs, meeting with kids, just going out of his way to, be a part of the community, which I thought was really cool. He didn't have to do that, But like I said, it's obvious to me in talking with his family and talking with his mom and, the reputation his father has as a coach in West Texas and as a player back in the day. Comes from good stock, and that helps, especially in a place like West Texas. He's a Red Raider. He likes it here. So, at some point you have to make business decisions. And I do think at some point, Donovan Smith and Barron Morton, something's going to happen down the line. I don't think in terms of, obviously only one guy can take snaps at a time. So there's going to be some competition, and that's a wealth right there of talent between those two. Because I saw both those guys in high school. I've seen them in practice, and they're both so talented, especially compared to quarterbacks we've seen here recently. Obviously not Patrick Mahomes, but both he and Donovan are, I think, special players. They're special quarterbacks, and they actually have a lot of the same skills in terms of being able to. They're good athletes. They have big arms, throwing on the run. They're both big. Donovan's bigger than Barron, but Barron's a big dude. He'll truck you. He'll truck DBs. It's going to be interesting. And just with talking with coaches, they're really excited about both of them. So this is not a negative review on Barron at all. I think you can make the argument for either one of those quarterbacks that they're the future of Red Raider football. So no, I think that would be honestly reading way too much into Donovan getting playing time. He's been here a year longer, so he had more time to get ready. Okay, Anonymous says, I mentioned 6 wins as a target for Wells to keep his job. I said, I was asked if I believe that's a 6-6 record that he would be retained. And I believe that, just my opinion, that yes, Kirby Hocutt would keep Matt Wells with a 6-6 record. That's my belief. I don't know that for a fact. He says, does the number change if he has a few more 20-point losses down the stretch, even if they beat Kansas State? He says, hard to justify a 6-win season as a success when the best wins are against Houston and bottom-tier Big 12 teams. says, not to mention the near disaster that Stephen F. Austin was. Yeah, I think that's a good point. Context does matter. I mean, it does. But I'm going to disagree with a couple things here. Like, all right, so Stephen F. Austin was a near disaster, but it wasn't. They won. Did they look bad? Is that something you could look at and say, like, okay, this could be a predictor of future struggles? Absolutely. I completely understand that. But now sitting here looking back at the fact that they almost lost but didn't, does that mean anything to me? No. In terms of like the overall resume. Yeah, the win over Houston was, I mean, big. I mean, obviously they've won since they lost to Tech. And it was a dominating second half performance by the Red Raiders on a big stage. It's a good win. I mean, say whatever you want. I don't like excuses for when bad things happen, but I don't like excuses to like try and argue against success. I mean, let's give them the success for, that they've earned. I mean, that West Virginia win. West Virginia's not a good team. I'm not saying they are, but Tech had so many guys out. That showed a lot of resiliency, and that's something that I haven't seen from this program in recent years. So I think I'm not big on I'm not trying to sway anyone to be positive or negative, whatever. I'm just trying to like, okay, here's the facts. What do we make of this? And what I make of what Tech is right now is an improved but very, very flawed team. And my biggest concern, and I'm going to really address this later in the mailbag, is some flawed schemes on defense. And it's not, I mean, to me, it's almost not even debatable on whether there are flawed schemes or not. Now, the Tech coaches would debate it, and that's fine. But that's what I believe. And like I said, there's some questions about it. I'll explain, because there's this thing out there about three-man fronts, and that's just like nails on the chalkboard to me, because that's not what I believe the problem is. But I'll get to that here in a minute. But the context of a 6-6 record does matter. Some really embarrassing losses down the stretch, and if there was like some kind of coaching blunder or something like that, a decision that cost them a win, that would matter too. I mean, all those things matter. Now, how much they matter to Kirby Hoka, I mean, you have to ask him. That guy, he likes to be Lone Wolf McQuaid. This is his guy. So, and he hasn't said anything about that, as far as I know, publicly. So, that's just what I believe, and we'll see what happens. Freak, all right, I like this question. He says, who's the best trash talker on the football team? Marquise Waters, everybody calls him Muddy. His name is Marquise Waters, the safety who's hurt. I remember watching him in one spring. He talked, not just smack, but he just talked constantly, whether it be to the water boy, and the photographers, the media, the coaches, the players. He would talk smack to receivers, coming across the middle and stuff like that. Quarterbacks would throw my way, see what happens. But he'd also talk with younger DBs and kind of help them be in the right place and all that. Talk to coaches, just shooting the breeze and everything. He's a really entertaining, interesting guy. But I think in terms of who's active, I mean, you got to give it to Rico Jeffers, right? The guy who was the MC in the spring game. He was out, so they gave him a mic and he was MCing, and he was hilarious. It was probably my favorite spring game experience because he was so good, and everybody was there knows exactly what I'm talking about. Him talking smack, and it was a lot of fun. And Rico Jeffers is another interesting dude, obviously a good player and a leader, but he likes to talk, and he's a good trash talker. All the Smoke says, for the first time in 3 years, Tech is not ranked in the AP preseason basketball poll. If Beard were still here, or for that matter, any head coach known by national media, where do you think Tech would be ranked given the talent on this team, on this year's roster? If Beard was here, they would be around 15th. He just has a way of, obviously, of he just has a way of manipulating the media, everyone, basically. And it's pretty, he's amazing at it. So, there's definitely like you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours kind of deal, it's definitely not a coincidence that I feel like, I felt like this last year, like they were overrated, in terms of the rankings, and then the year before. And some of that's just giving Beard some respect, but also it's just, you scratch my, I'll scratch yours in terms of who's breaking certain things, about Texas Tech and the national media, and then how they have them ranked and stuff. So that's just part of the game. That's not even sketchy to me. That's just part of the game. And then just in terms of just any kind of nationally known coach, yeah, I think it would be a top 20 team. You know, I mean, the talent is undeniable. Kevin O'Banner was one of the best players in the tournament last year. I mean, putting up 30 and 20 against Ohio State and stuff. I mean, the dude's just a baller. And then Shannon coming back, borderline NBA guy. Kevin McCullough, you know, like the ultimate. I hesitate to call him a glue guy, but I mean, it's kind of what he is, like a Grant Hill type, right? He does like a billion different things very well. It helps your team win. I mean, Bryson Williams, can't believe I just now mentioning him. I mean, Davion Warren's has been a 20-point scorer at the Division I level. I mean, just go on and on. You know, Marcus Santos Silva coming back, a solid veteran. And some of the young guys that are getting better and progressing. I just like Agbo, Nadolny, all those guys. It's a really talented team. I was out at practice recently and it just nailed it home. Like these guys, they're going to be good. It's going to be a good team. They're going to win a lot of games. They're going to be a lot of fun. So, yeah, you know, I mean, you look at like some like the Ken Palm, the analysts and people that I respect and I really, you know, look at. Eric Haslam is another one. Haslam Metrics is a great site. We have him on a radio show like almost every week during basketball season. That guy knows his stuff, man. He spends so much time doing it. But they all have him like 12, 11, 10, you know, that kind of stuff. This Texas Tech team. So that's what I really care about. Disappointing that AP poll can't do better, but you know, I understand those guys are busy and probably haven't done their research. So they'll be in the poll at the end, which is what matters, right? All right, 78 Tech says, JJ, a quote of yours in another thread is, quote, if they do beat K-State, it will give a brand new perspective on the final third of the regular season. That is a true quote. I did say that on the Insider board. He says, I also rightfully called out Tech after the TCU debacle. He says, what he can't get away from is the body of work. He said he's not calling me out, but if Tech beats Kansas State, he wants to know how they beat them. And if the D is still Swiss cheese, he won't be swayed much. He says, for example, they're 1-0 against Stephen. If I go back to the Stephen Austin really bothered y'all. I understand that. But basically, the body of work has 78 Tech believing that Tech's not going to beat Kansas State. And you know what? I mean, I predicted Kansas State to win by double digits. So, and this is a team that hasn't won their last 8 Big 12 games dating back to last year, and have lost 3 in a row this year. So, and the reason for that is because I don't believe. I believe the coaches believe in their defensive scheme, and I believe that defensive scheme is flawed. Now, one good thing is, in terms of how they can win this game, if they sell out to stop the run and then compete, and there's going to be some tough competitions there in the secondary. It's going to put a lot on the secondary, but if they can do that and slow down the running game and then compete and get some breaks in pass defense when Kansas State counters what Tech's doing defensively, then that's going to go a long way towards the Red Raiders winning. I mean, I understand they're going to get torched some. I'm not saying they're not. I'm just saying you can't let what happened against TCU happen again, against Kansas State, and they have the players and the will to do it. So that's how they win. Limit the run, get some turnovers, don't get crushed in special teams. Coach Wills talked about that. They can't lose that area of the game. And then offensively, I think Tech's going to have success. Whoever they put at quarterback, I think they're going to have success. Whoever is there on the offensive line is going to do a good job, like they have, against West Virginia, and then against last week against Kansas. Kansas State has struggled defensively, especially like on defensive end and up front, which is not what I'm used to saying about Kansas State, but they have. So I believe Tech's going to be able to put up some points. So if they can just compete on defense, not play that, I'm going to get into this 3-2-6 janky kind of defense that they did against TCU, and they bring up an extra linebacker like they did against Kansas, and really compete, and then obviously know their gaps and play soundly. And then it's not just on the coaches; the players got to play. They got to step up, man. If you're in a position to make a play, make that tackle. And like I get tired of hearing the same stuff, but populate toward the ball. They got to run to the football. More than just one hat. No, don't just put it on Colin Schooler and make every tackle on Deuce Vaughn or whoever's in there, Skylar Thompson. So it's not just one thing as usual, but it starts for me with that scheme. You're right; they're going to lose, and it'll steamroll, and this tough schedule coming up, and they probably will lose all the games. But they win Saturday, 6-2. I mean, who knows what happens in the final month of the season? These teams could have some injuries. Tech can catch them on a bad day, get another win. All of a sudden, hey, 7-5 regular season. Come on, you can take that, right? That's a good season. That's a stepping stone type of season. See what bowl you go to. Heck, you might even win 8 games, and that's a good season. So this week is a key though, for sure. OBX Raider says, I watch a lot of college games. It seems to me that most schools are running a 3-man front, like Tech does. Everyone's screaming coaching, but I think it's a lack of very good players. My thoughts, yeah. Well, like I just said, I don't want to say lack of very good players. There's some good players. I'm not saying, they're dominant, but I mean, Colin Schooler's one of the more accomplished players, at least in the front. We're talking about. I like Jalen Hutchings. He's inconsistent, but I like him. Tyree Wilson has a lot of potential, and they have some guys. They're better than they have been, and they're better than. I mean, I like Tech's defensive line at least as much as Kansas State's defensive line. So I hear what you're saying, but people are oversimplifying things, and it's nails on the chalkboard about the 3-man front. The 3-man front's not the problem. It's how many guys they have in the box, where they're getting lined up, and I'll tell you, like against TCU, I saw from the first play that they had Josiah Pierre, a 6', 245-pound monster. I mean, he's a really good football player who transferred from Florida, and he's a thumper. I mean, like I've seen him. He's in on the goal line packages. I mean, you want him up around the line of scrimmage, not out in the flat, like out in the secondary. Against TCU, they had a 3-man defensive front, which is fine. I get it, and that's very like you said. A lot of schools do that. But then they had like Rico and Colin in there, and that was it. Josiah was out almost in the flat. He was, I would say, at least 5-6 yards out of like the actual box, where the action, where it happens, what really happens, what determines a football game. But then he was back like 8 yards. I mean, that's a nickel back. That's not a linebacker. He's not in position to affect that run until at least 5 yards down the line of scrimmage, and that's if he plays it perfectly. And he actually makes a tackle on a Big 12 running back. So, and that's what was happening. I mean, you had 5 offensive linemen against 5 guys in the box with 3 safeties back 12 yards. And then you had a big, fast running back in Duggan who didn't even have to run a whole lot. And then quality running, Big 12 running backs, And so, I mean, it was a numbers game. I mean, you needed at least one more guy in the box, really 2. And they just didn't do it for most of the game. And then when they did, it snowballed. And yeah, the players didn't make some plays. So it's not just one thing, but the whole object in my mind of coaching is putting your players in the best possible position to have success so you can win the ball game. And that scheme, that 3-2-6, it wasn't a 3-3-5 he was playing. He tried to do something to protect his secondary because most of the guys were out. Coach Patterson did, and I understand that, but you overthought it. It's quit scheming for yourself and scheme some against who you're playing. Obviously, TCU was going to come in and run the football. I mean, I think Kansas State's going to do the same. Now, they're going to try and hit some passes on you too, and TCU did hit some passes. Don't get me wrong, but to me, if you're giving up 8 yards of pop, then it's not going to be a ball game, on the run. I mean, it's not. So you got to do that first, and then compete and battle where you can in the secondary. To me, it's a no-brainer. That's what you do. But we'll see. I don't know. That may not. Obviously, the coaches may not agree with me. They have a lot of experience. I'm just some guy who talks about it, right? So I have been doing this a long time, and honestly, we're not talking about NASA. This isn't rocket science, and it seems pretty obvious to me. I don't think this is complicated. You load up, stop the run, compete in the back end, see what you can do, and then adjust from there. Then the chess game really starts. But you got to at least, don't just knock over the queen on the first move. Come on, don't checkmate on the first move is what I'm asking for. But the 3-man front, that's not the problem. Everyone says that, and I'm just like, I feel like Red in Shawshank Redemption. I want to take him aside and talk to him and tell him the way things really are. The 3-man front's not the problem. It's how many guys you have in the box, the way you have them aligned, the fact that the guys know their run fits, all that stuff. And then it's just about players making plays too. So it's not just one thing. It's all together. But I could do a 20-minute video just on this question alone, but I'm going to stop there. We'll see what they do Saturday, but I do think it's probably the biggest factor in the game. Red Raider says he's hard-pressed to see Tech winning more than one the rest of the way. But he said, but let's say Wells and the team somehow squeak out 2 W's, but get trampled TCU style by the other 3. Could we still expect to see Patterson gone? And he said, hopefully. The scheme-wise, some of the scheme stuff has been frustrating to me. But I'm not saying, like, if Patterson can show an ability to adjust, which, I mean, he should be able to, his scheme tweak. I mean, I'm not saying you're going to change your whole scheme, but your defense should already be built to be able to tweak it. I mean, or you're already flawed there. So I understand people want Patterson gone. I'm not gonna defend him like that, but I'm not necessarily saying, oh, I definitely want him gone, especially if they win 7 games. Like I said before, context does matter. But could you see changes in the context that you laid out, and some bad losses even with 7 wins? Of course, yeah. And it may not be. I know Wells doesn't want to do that. I mean, that's known, but it may not be his choice. And I think, like, it wasn't his choice to replace Yost. And Yost has had success at other places, but he didn't here. Cumbie has been an improvement. More of an improvement than I figured, to be honest. So, I mean, there's proof there to at least show Wells, look, you made that move, and it paid off. Now it's time to do on the other end. Let's go find you a real go-getter, a guy who can really make some things happen, make some differences for your defense as a defensive coordinator. But we'll have to see what happens. They got to win those 2 games first, right? All right, final question. This is a good one. Texas Tech Austin says, ranking the Big 12 in talent alone, where does Texas Tech fall, and who is ahead of us in football? Well, football, I would say at best 7th in terms of just talent. 6th. I mean, there's some talent on this team. I mean, you look at EZ, the quarterbacks now, especially the young guys. The height at receiver, height that, like, a guy like Mason Tharp, I mean, that's a talented dude. I mean, even the offensive line, it's a big offensive line. Defensively, you're smaller on the defensive line, but you're big at linebacker, and you have a lot of depth. I mean, after the TCU and Texas game, I'm not going to go, oh, they have like the best linebacking core. I mean, that's just dumb. I'm not going to do that. But I like a lot of their linebackers. And then the secondary, I mean, they've been so decimated by injury, but guys like Marquise Waters, Reggie Pearson, DeMarcus Fields, who Mighty Joe's, basically calls a pro. He thinks he's going to play in the NFL, and I think he certainly has a legitimate shot. I think he'll probably be drafted, Fields, in the late round. So they have talent, but it's the Big 12. So I would say I'd say at best like 6th. Because all right, OU, Texas, Oklahoma State, who am I missing? Baylor probably, TCU probably. I would say have more talent overall, just going through the depth chart. But then like Iowa State, Kansas State, who else do we have? West Virginia, I mean, and Tech, they're all kind of similar. I mean, they're all right there. Iowa State probably has more talent. So I would say Iowa State probably has a little more talent. Not a ton. They're just schemed up and coached well as well. I mean, they have that culture and all of that. Matt Campbell, obviously. But they have some talent on that team, too. So those guys are ahead. And I think, is Kansas State more talented? I don't think so. West Virginia? No, probably not. Certainly not Kansas. So that's where they are. And then basketball, Kansas probably is. Texas, probably, in terms of pure talent. Baylor, maybe. But that would be it. That I would say for sure has more talent. So Tech, I mean, they're right like 4th or 5th in terms of talent. Probably 4th. 3rd, maybe they have more talent than Baylor. You'd have to really break it down. Because Tech is really talented this year. I think if you follow Baylor, you'd probably say Baylor. If you follow Tech, you say Tech. So, basketball, they're very talented. They're going to make a run next year, or this year. It's going to be a lot of fun. So, can't wait for that. So, speaking of, can't wait to see how Tech and Kansas State plays out. I'm going to be on the radio, actually, across the street from the Jones, Red Raider Outfitter, as I am every game week, every home game. Rocking pregame on 101.1 FM. That's actually the Beard, which is ironic. But no, 8 to 10, we're going to be previewing the game, talking some basketball recruiting too. Actually, Matt Mooney's going to join us, former Red Raider basketball great, of course. So it's going to be a great show. So if you're watching this before the game, you want some Texas Tech preview, check it out. You can stream it online or listen in locally. So with that, I want to thank you for all your great questions. Thank you for watching, and until next time.